Yes, Stan.
Yes. A little while ago, you talked about being part of a dead church. How can we prevent ourselves from becoming part of a dead church? I'm done.
So you're asking about a church being dead and how it is judged, right? If I just want to understand your question correctly.
Well, what I what I wanted to know was what steps can we take to prevent ourselves from becoming part of a dead church? Or I guess another way of wording it, what are the signs of a dead church? So if we see we're involved in that, we can take the correct steps. I'm done.
Yes, that's obviously there's a continual evaluation and spiritual discernment without which you cannot decide. And the turning point, you can say, the turning point when a church becomes Babylon is abomination desolation. Because in Matthew 24, Christ said, when you see the abomination that makes desolate, flee, run for your life. So at that point, you should not delay. So the abomination desolation is the turning point. But what is abomination desolation? And how do you know? And how long was the abomination desolation? That's also a big subject, mega subject. But maybe abomination desolation was already set up. You're not seeing. When you are not seeing, that's probably okay. But when you see, that's what words of Christ, when you see, you flee. Or whenever you see, you flee. Or the abomination desolation has not yet come, but God is giving you sensitivity to see the actual progress of abomination desolation. Now, boom, you're pretty sure this is the abomination desolation. Run for your life. So the abomination desolation, what it is the passing of death wave in a human body is equivalent. But yeah, go ahead, continue your question, Stan.
Yes, and I'm sure that there are times when the abomination of desolation will be very subtle and indirect. Correct? I'm done.
It is not if you are following the scriptures with the spiritual discernment, because the description and instructions are have no ambiguity. Because we are not studied this enough, we are not taught. That's why the subject is obscure. It's kind of difficult to discern. But once you vet through the Olivet prophecy, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 24, 27, all these 100 verses, once we go through that, it becomes ample clear. Actually, it's a crystal clear. Now you are equipped and armed with the whole discernment, what to look for and what to look for the turning point of the abomination desolation. And if you are in spiritual Judea, run for your life. That's the thing. And yeah, keep asking. It's hard to explain in one sentence, but
Okay, well, thank you for your answer. I will sit and listen to other people contribute. I'm done.
okay. Thanks, Stan, for the question. Let's go to Willard next.
Okay, I want to stir the pot probably, but I think one of the things that contributes to the difficulty of understanding of what you're talking about there is the very term church. The church is derived from an ancient Greco-Roman term of Kirk, and it literally means circus. And I can't think of a term that fits better what has become the Christian churches of the world today. If we would use what it's translated from the Greek of ecclesia, or ecclesia, I suppose it is, isn't it? It is a called out ones, and we called out ones. It doesn't matter where on the face of the earth you are. We don't have to be members of some 501(c) organization. It doesn't matter what congregation or what group of people, like-minded people that we gather with. We are a collection of called out ones scattered about the whole face of the earth. And these, we have to think, we can't worry about God saving the church. He's not going to save the circus. I think the circus is pretty well doomed. But his called out ones, his children, those who obey and love him and live their lives for him, should feel very secure in the promises that he has made to us. And it's been a travesty that our Bibles have been filled with this terrible mistranslation. And I hope I'm not, I don't mean to sound like I'm unloading, I'm not. But we need to think of us more highly of our Creator. Thanks for listening to me.
No problem, Willard. You touched very, very important subject. They called out once, ecclesia, ekkaleia, you're called. It's a war cry to come out of Babylon and be separate. Come to me. That's the definition of true church. So you're called, but essentially that's a spiritual concept because Babylon is spiritual and Zion is spiritual. There is no way of knowing Babylon unless you know its spiritual signatures. Same is with true church, Zion. There is no way of knowing it unless you analyze it and examine it and describe it truthfully. That's what we began our study. Looking at a system and analyzing and understanding and truthfully describing, those are the fundamental basic steps, either to recognize true church or the false church. So here is the difficulty. You go by the signatures and character and the pattern matching. Now, there are two ways people try to identify Babylon. One is the physical clues, and second is spiritual clues. The physical clues, for example, the names, the church. The word church comes from a root word that is a dead body. Corpse comes from corpse. Corpse and church both come from some root word researchers have found that's a dead body. So that's a physical clue. So with this physical clue, can you say wherever the word church is there, would they automatically be a dead church? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You have to go by its patterns and signatures. The second physical clue people would use is 501(c). That's for US only, not for the world. So if this particular group is registered with US government and receives tax exemption and blah, 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 you are part of Caesar, part of the beast system, all these things, these are physical clues. Is it possible for a 501(c) church could be a dead church? Possible. But the Bible doesn't give us that kind of freedom. The physical clues might be helpful for you, but those are not reliable always. I would, as a teacher, I would say go with spiritual signatures. What is the character? What are the components? What's happening inside the system? not only you look at the system, but you see through the system. That's the kind of spiritual discernment you would eventually grow. Your eyes would be, your mind would be like X-ray machine. You see through the bodies, see through the systems, and that's essential for you to understand whether it is a Zion, that is true church, or Babylon. I honestly don't see the physical clues would really give us, help us much. There's also going wrong with physical clues. If I say all the 5013C church registered churches are all dead and false churches, what if somebody were not aware of this 5013C thing about the US laws, but they might be still not subjected to abomination desolation? There is a theoretical possibility of that church could still be a Zion, but if you use physical clues alone, we tend to err. So I would recommend go with spiritual signatures. There is a less likely that you would make a mistake or error. But that's my long answer to your long question. Do you have any further comment or question on this, Willard?
Thank you, sir. It occurred to me while you were speaking, oversimplification here, but in a sense, Babylon is Antichrist.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Let's go to Alan.
Yeah, I'm going back to answer Stan's question.
Thank you.
How do we not, I think his question was, what can we do to not become dead? Was that what he said? Something along those lines. I want to share my screen for a moment.
Stan, would you mind repeating your question? Because he wants to answer that.
Or maybe stepped away. You out there, Stan?
Yeah, I was asking, how do I know if that church became dead? How do I know? When should I return? Run away? That's kind of
Can you
question.
see my screen here?
Yes.
We're working in Revelation chapter 3, and unto the angel of the church in Sardis write these things. It says, he that hath the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your works. I know everything about you. That you have a name, and that even though you're alive, you are dead inside. Be watchful. Now you could just stop right there and spend a lot of time on what it means to be watchful. Watchful for what? This is how we exercise ourselves to not die. Number 1 is by being watchful, being fully aware, you could say, and being able to examine your own condition as well as the condition of those around you. Not that you would want to examine them to condemn them, but that you just be fully aware and strengthen the things which remain. Whatever you got that's left, you have some faith left? Do you still have some truth? Do you still have love towards some? Strengthen those core things that are necessary and then continue to grow in those things. If you want to not die, this is the instruction right here. Be watchful and strengthen your faith and the truth. If you have some truth, strengthen that truth. Those things that are ready to die or to perish or to completely disappear, strengthen those things, because I have not found your works in doing those things perfect. You haven't been strengthening them perfectly, but you've been letting it slack and slip. So now stop and repent of allowing that to happen. I think this is one of the things we can do to not die. Remember, therefore, the things that you had received in the past and the things you heard. From who? From the apostles and from the words of Christ. So remember, don't let yourself forget, because if you do, you're going to die. And the things you received and heard, hold fast, hang on, cling to them. And let no man take your crown here. And repent. And turn away from not holding fast to those things you received and heard. So I think this is a kind of I'm giving a very surface, simplistic answer to the question, but these guidelines are supreme for the church that he said was dead and dying. So for Stan's question, what do we do to not die? These are some things, some starting points, I think, that could be helpful.
Thank you, Alan, for this very appropriate piece of scriptures that you referenced. Thank you. I don't know if Stan has stepped out. When he comes back, we'll tell him. Now let's go to Ken.
I've just been keeping my fingers here in Jeremiah 29. It applies. I know you've studied it already, but it doesn't hurt to come back. I'm trying to find it here, 29, where he says, "For thus says Yahweh, when at my bidding 70 years are fulfilled for Babylon, I shall visit you and will carry out my good word for you to restore to you this place. For I myself know the designs that I am designing for you, averring is Yahweh, designs for your well-being and not for evil, to give you a hereafter and an expectation. When you call me and you come and you pray to me, I will hearken to you." This gets a little emotional for me, but when you seek me, you shall find me, for you shall seek after me with all your heart, and I will be found by you, averring is Yahweh. And I will reverse your captivity, and will convene you from all the nations and from all the places where I drove you away, averring is Yahweh, which I will restore to you, the place from which I deported you. This is an encouragement to me, and I just wanted to share it because I know sometimes life has its ebbs and flows, and we do spiritually as well. And sometimes we lose focus. And it's verses like this and in meetings like this that we need. I'm not sure where it is, but it says it's probably in one of the Jeremiah, it says, "Revive us again." And we all have, I shouldn't say we all, at least I know I do, ebbs and flows, and we see where we're not seeking, and we should. Repentance is appropriate, and so is revival in any time in our lives. And I just am really grateful for the teachings and the encouragement. It makes me want to seek after God with all my heart. And thank you, Gabor, because I know and I'm convinced that God is using you, and I really appreciate this these studies. And now I need to go back and review the ones we missed, which is going to take a long time. But thank you. I really appreciate it. And to you brothers and sisters on here as well, your words encourage us greatly. Hearing you also expound and ask questions that are meaningful and life has its trials, and I know we all go through them, and they're for a reason. I shudder sometimes and think about some of the trials that we've gone through, but I know God is good, and He means well, and I'm really thankful to our God and our Lord Jesus Christ for being a part of this. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you, Ken, for that scripture, and also your encouraging comments for the whole room, as well as me. We should be seeking after God. That's what you quoted. I wonder, when the church is going bad and about to become Babylon, could there be a
Mike,
possibility that we are not seeking God as we have to? There is some kind
I'm
of sliding back.
I'm still struggling with that word church, because the word church actually originally, as far as I know, is a of course we all know that mistranslation of ecclesia is actually a bad translation that I think originated in England, the word kirk. And I'm just amazed how people talk about their church, their kirk, their building, and we are the real building. We are the ecclesia, and most people don't see that. They don't. They may have even heard it, but it still doesn't register. As much as they've heard it, I've down through the years. It's no big deal. We're still church, type thing. But we're caught out body of believers. We're the set apart ones, the ecclesia. I just thought I'd throw that in since you got on the whole idea of church. I like to be part of the called out ones, and it's only by God's grace, and it's His grace that keeps us coming back for more, or we wouldn't do it on our own. I know that. I don't know why. There's an old song, "Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve even one?" I don't know if you've heard that before, but it's an old cowboy song. But he wants to know why, and it's all out of grace, not of works, lest anyone should boast. I'm just another human being, sinner, not wanting to, but wanting God to just show me the way.
Any other comments? Any other insights into the subject of Babylon? Things that we discussed today or in this series?
I want to say something to Ken. I'm so glad that you're here with us. Most of everybody I know in this group is very special. God has called us to this group and to Tagore, to his teaching. And it's so good to have you here as a fellow child of the great high God, our brother in our brother in Yeshua, in Jesus Christ. So double welcome to you, and thank you for your beautiful words of encouragement to all of us.
One other thing, I've got the most beautiful wife in the world, and sorry if you guys think you got the most, but thank you. I appreciate those words of encouragement. But my wife has been by my side, and we're in this together. We're just it's a real journey. It's a real encouragement. I'm going to keep coming back for more. I'm just another beggar trying to find out where to get some spiritual food. And we come to the right place. And we appreciate all of you, brothers and sisters. But the last few weeks we've been involved. It's really encouraging. I love this. Really do.
Yes, please, Alan.
Yeah, one of the things that we see in verse 43 is about as a woman in childbirth, the pangs. It says in the New King James, pangs. Anguish has taken hold of that, of him, pangs as of a woman in childbirth. And we remember the curse that was given to Eve, that there would be great pain in childbirth. Part of the original curse from being put out of the garden. And as we read through much of scripture, we see women dying from childbirth. That's part of the curse of this pang of a woman in childbirth. Even Jacob's wife, Rachel, dies while giving birth to Benjamin. And Eli's wife, or his son's wife, dies giving childbirth, and she names the child Ichabod, which is symbolic name for the glory of the Lord has departed. If you go back and read that in 1 Samuel. So this idea of women having pangs of childbirth is a kind of a curse, and it represents death in some cases. Now, in this case, it does represent death, the death of Babylon. So we see that this phrase has some long-range symbology built into it. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. In Revelation 12, New Jerusalem, our mother, she's also in pain. She was also travailing. She was pregnant, but the other verses tell us she's also travailing, labor pains. So that's a good labor pain that she brought forth the male child, Jesus Christ, who is going to rule the world with a rod of iron and dash the nations to pieces. So it's a naturally occurring phenomenon. Perhaps God has added more pain to the labor. But here, definitely, to Babylon, it's much negative sense. It's not going to stop. The judgment will come on Babylon. So that you're right. I think Ken is working on barren woman. He's doing research wherever barren women are there and giving birth to a male child. So he's compiling, he's hoping to give a presentation sometimes.
It's going to take me probably a little bit longer than I had hoped. By the way, I don't know if I double dosed on my blood pressure, but I didn't raise my hand for that. But it's running pretty low, not seriously low, but it's running low right now. So I may have taken an extra dose. Gotta start setting my clock and everything. But it's this whole idea of childbearing, God prophesied. I know you all know this, but I just reminded that the whole thing about childbearing is also allegorical, and it's not just happening with women, but it's happening in our own lives. We have to die to ourselves in order to be begotten from above. And it's a process. I used to think it's just a one slam dunk thing like a lot of people do in the churches today, but it's not. They got this idea that it's a one time thing. And it's not that we should lose our assurance and joy as long as we're seeking. It's not by our own works of righteousness, but according to his mercy he saved us. And we just need to let go of the old saying and let God. But it's a process. We're being born again. So many people, it's easy believism. All you have to do is say a sinner's prayer. Well, I said my sinner's prayer, but I've said a whole lot since then too. Not because I'm being saved over and over, and yet we are we die daily and we're being saved daily. And it's a growth process, and we need each other. No man is an island, and for quite a while, it was just Christine and I. And by the way, Christine is here too. She's sitting here, just really taking it all in. And men with believing wives, we are really blessed. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ken. Any other?
Oh, and I will get busy on that. I've got some ideas, but and, it may take me I don't know, maybe a month. Do you think? I hope
Okay,
that's not
take
too
your
long.
time. No hurry.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
you're ready,
I
we
didn't think
will.
so.
Yeah, I'll request Don Wales, Don and Peggy, and they will put you on
Okay.
schedule.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other comments on Babylon? Any other comment on system? The system and components brought together, a whole is formed. Sometimes people use the word collective. I forgot to introduce that. Maybe next time I will introduce collective. Yes, Willard, please.
I'm going to be a smart aleck. My system is very tired, and I have to be 5 in the morning, Eastern.
Okay.
And I have enjoyed tonight so very much, and I thank you, Tagore, and all of you who have commented. And I love this group, and I hate to leave you, but hopefully, God willing, I'll see you again on Friday evening, and really look forward to it. So thank you for the bright spots in my life. Good night, all.
Good night, Willard.
Good night,
Good night,
Will.
Willard.
Good
And
night,
Willard,
Willard.
thank you for your nice contribution.
He said his system needs rest.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing about systems, especially the organic. I think, did you use the word organic? No.
Organic whole,
Organic.
WHOLE, or non-organic whole. Yeah.
Yeah, any organic system is exceedingly complex. because the individual interacting members that are dependent on one another are very complex and interdependent for them to function on a healthy level. So it's described in the Ecclesia, right? The hand cannot say to the foot, I don't need you. The eye cannot say to the ear. So all the parts are necessary in the organic systems of the spiritual temple. As it says in Ephesians, you are all being built up into the house of God to make components for that house. Individual members doing their share, doing their parts. So it can be very complicated. And sometimes I think we don't understand the function of others if it's not our function. And we should realize that. We should try to realize that I can't really understand other people's functions because it's not mine and I'm not gifted that way. So I should receive and understand it, and I should be the recipient of the benefits of others, even though I may not fully understand as an eye what the ear does. So I just wanted to say it's a very complex matter. We have to be careful not to denigrate just because we don't understand.
Yeah, more often you're right. We despise others. We think their role is much smaller. This happens especially with respect to teachers' role. Traditionally, we have pushed up teachers above the congregation. That's unfortunate. That's not the right thing. Teacher happens to be one of the components of the body. There are others through whom God would feed and nourish the whole ecclesia. The teachers also have this pride because they don't look at this model of organic whole. You have to humble yourself and downgrade and downsize yourself. Just do the job faithfully, what God has given you. That's all you have to do until your last breath. So teachers, others, congregation should not push up teachers, and teachers should not push themselves up. With respect to other offices like administrators, sometimes probably push themselves up, and the lay brethren just they put hand around another brother or sister around their shoulder and just silently encourage, I am with you, I feel for you. That has equal contribution to an hour of teaching. We don't see like that. We see an hour of teaching has greater value than a brother or a sister laying his or her hand around another brother or sister and saying silently, I am with you. It's equally important and equally profound and equally valuable in God's eyes. As long as we do it, the problem is we don't do it. So we have to rethink, reapproach the way we look at the ecclesia, the system among each other. So that's a great subject that you have raised, Alan. You want to go to Stan?
Yeah.
Yes. With regard to teachers, I think it's easy for a teacher to fall into the trap of thinking, I know something you don't know, instead of thinking of himself or herself as a servant. And actually, if we all thought of ourselves as servants of each other in the body would be a lot healthier. I'm done.
You're so right. You're right on the point. Stan, appreciate your comment very much. we should all be like this, what you mentioned. We should develop that culture and maintain that culture of equality and respect. Let's go to Marlene. Welcome, Marlene.
Thank you. Really appreciate your message. I think what we're lacking is this understanding of the members of the spiritual body in the three places that God talks about those. Because you've got in Romans 12, the list of these gifts, and Ephesians 4, and 1 Corinthians 12. And it lists all these gifts. And if you realize these are all what members of Christ's spiritual body are, then you would look at each other from that point of view and realize, yeah, the value of the compassion person is very important compared to the giver and the administrator and all the other gifts. And realize people aren't looking at things through your eyes if you're the compassion person, compared to, one of the givers or so on. And realize your gift is a special gift from God. And you need to learn to use all the other gifts because God is all of those things. And then you've got your teachers, your shepherds, your evangelists, and all those, the miracles and all the list that goes on. And so to realize, yeah, these people have these gifts, acknowledge that, support it, and realize what your gifts are and use them as God blesses you and puts you in situations to use your gifts. So I think that's part of the problem is we don't see those spiritual gifts that God gives his spiritual body and appreciate them and not exalt yourself, as you mentioned. It's like, it's a constant struggle and awareness just of these gifts.
And I might add, it's important when you figure out what your gift is, that you don't overuse it.
Or abuse
Because
it, yeah.
it's like, the old saying, when all you've got is a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. And it just, overusing it is abusive. And I've taken the tests and I realize I'm an administrator. As an administrator, my job is to get it done. It doesn't matter who you damage on the way through, and how many people fall by the wayside. As long as you succeed in getting where you're supposed to go and get the mission done, that's all you have to worry about. So I've always surrounded myself with people that were more compassionate. And they would tell me, it's time to stop and take a break, Tom. You're killing these people. Let's go out and have a party. And so then the compassionate person would organize the party, and we'd all have a good time. And it worked out well.
Get back to work.
And then we got back to work.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to those people who have gift of teaching? How can they overdo their gift?
If you look at the gift of teaching, it's you'll find out that it's not just teaching. What it is it's understanding the words. Our one of our daughters is a teacher, has a teacher gift, and every time we would try and explain things to her, she would say, well, "What does that word mean? What does that word mean? What does that?" I mean, it's like a broken record, and you'd have to go into all these details on what it means. There are some people, if you know Hal Geiger, he is a teacher, and he will always bring out definition of words. Well, that word means this, and it's used over here, and it means different over here. So that's what the teacher gift is. It's not necessarily that you want to explain something. It's that they want to know what it is specifically that word means, and why I should use that one.
So it's like in Romans 12 where it lists the 7 gifts and the teacher gift there. That's the one that it's not necessarily a teacher as a career, because compassion people make really great teachers and exhorters and so on. The teacher there, it's talking about how you want to know in depth the definition of the words. And then I think one of the others where it talks about the teacher, as long as a shepherd and evangelist and all that, which I think Tagore is where you'd fit in with that also. I think that's what you're asking about. Yeah, it's an abuse of a gift, like you mentioned about thinking you're better than everybody else because you have all this knowledge and understanding, and the rest of us are trying to understand it. And you've already mentioned the pitfalls that you're aware of, I think. Yeah, or the abuse of just all you do is study and you don't do anything else. Your life is not balanced. It's typical things with all of the gifts. You can't overuse them. And probably the most obvious one is the server gift. They just don't know how to say no, and they will just run themselves into the ground, sick and, health problems because they don't say no. And that's an abuse of your gift. So,
There are people that we know that were speaking at the lectern, and they were the server type of a person, and they literally just stopped and kind of stared off into the sky, almost froze. They just froze up, and they wore themselves right out,
heart problems.
and they had heart problems and everything else. So they sort of retired for a while from the duty of speaking and leading and everything else because they couldn't take it. It was just too much. They wore themselves out. So if you find somebody that's always serving, you have to be careful not to ask them to do things because they will do it and they will kill themselves doing it.
That's right. Well, I'm taking your heed to your advice. I'm taking 3 weeks off in first 3 weeks of May.
Congratulations.
Sounds like a good time.
Party on.
We'll resume after third week in May. Don will publish the calendar. So 3 weeks you will not have teachings of prophecy or even the Friday evenings. Just want to take off. Like I'm beginning to see that I'm getting burnt out
Mhm.
with the 2 series that are going on. So I
Yeah.
need some time off and then breathe fresh air. I'll go to Atlanta and spend some time.
Sounds good.
Good for you. Yeah. We'll miss you. That's for sure.
Thank you. I think we'll get back to Stan.
Yeah, with regard to teaching, I know I was a high school math teacher and I'm subbing now in the
Yep.
high school level. And with the teaching and subbing combined, this is my 45th year in a high school classroom and I still love it. And I've discovered a couple of important things that it's important. One, it's important to talk to people and not at them. And it's interesting. It's so easy to talk at people. I've had instructors in graduate school, and when they taught, they were well-meaning, but you would think that they were delivering a soliloquy. And it's so easy to do that, just to stand up in front of a group of people and recite, whether it's facts or figures or names or dates, and you're talking as if nobody is in the room. Another facet I've learned is important is teaching is not one way. It's not a one-way street where good teaching, in my opinion, where a person gets up there, he or she spews out whatever knowledge he or she wants to disseminate, and then they leave the podium and they're done. I think a good teacher does encourage dialogue, a two-way street. And it may take some planning and effort to do that, but I believe that's a very effective part of it. I'm done.
Thank you, Stan, for very important advice you are giving. First, don't talk to the room, talk to the people. And second thing, make it interactive, two-way. We often think about this two-way for our Bible studies, but in some groups, there's too many interruptions, so we end up not teaching anything. So we adopted this model of teaching it for 45 minutes to an hour, and then we will start interactive discussion on what was just presented. So that's the model. I'm not saying that is the ideal model. I would probably be happier to have more interactive, but practically do not know how to do it. If you all have matured audience, if you don't go on rabbit trails too much, then probably we should have interactive. But in my experience, the interactive failed because it was all interactive interaction, people talking, and nothing was presented eventually at the end of the evening. It was just discussion. Like, so it's because of the practical difficulties. But if you have any suggestions that you want this discussion, at least like prophecy insights, like if you want to be more interactive, I can put more stops during the presentation and ask, what do you think? If you like that kind of thing, let me know. Yes, Stan.
But I don't mean to contradict you, but I think the way you conduct the prophecy insights, I think you have a healthy balance of presenting material and then the presentation is over and you open up the floor for interactions. I think that's a very healthy balance that you have. I agree with you. Now the Cafe Clutch is a lot of discussion and there's a time and place for that. But when you're presenting, I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but I think you've struck a very healthy balance between going over verses, bringing out some thoughts and viewpoints, and then when you feel you have covered enough material, okay, the floor is open. We can now discuss. I think you've done a very good job in striking a balance between the two. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Stan, for the feedback.